Hello everyone. So we will continue our discussion on the cultural dimension, and today we will be looking at Hall's communication and context model. So the key learning objectives of this particular lecture are: we will apply Hall's three contextual dimensions, which are about context, time and space, to interpret cross-cultural communication patterns in users. We will distinguish between high context from low context cultures and monochronic from polychronic time orientations to inform interaction design. Then we will translate Hall's proxemic zones and information flow patterns into culturally adapted UI density, copy and notification strategies, and see the implications of all of these on user research. So, Edward T. Hall was an American anthropologist, widely credited as the founder of intercultural communication studies. So, in terms of design researchers, for us, there are two cultural models which are very applicable for the design context. We discussed about Hofstede's value dimensions, and the Hall's framework focuses on tacit, non-verbal patterns. So focuses on tacit nonverbal patterns, which implies that they are the hidden grammar designers must learn to read. So there are three pillars of Hall's framework. Context, which means how much information is implicit and versus how much is explicit. So if you are somebody who is watching from the Indian culture, you might be pretty familiar that we don't say hi or namaste just as a word of greeting, but the way we say hi or namaste, it implies a lot of different things. So if you enter your classroom and you are coming in late, then your teacher might say hi in a different voice tone, and if you meet a very good friend, you would say hi to each other in a very tone, and the way in which you say, the facial expression, the tone, they all carry all the implicit meaning. So the context is about studying all that. So how much of a culture is implicit? So how, when they are communicating with each other, how much of the information is implicit in body language, in the tonation, in the context in which the talking is happening, and explicit, how much it is like clear. So if I say hi, it only means one thing, that I am greeting you as hi. So, high context cultures rely on shared knowledge relationships and non-verbal cues. Low context cultures encode meaning in direct and explicit messages. India is a high context culture, so we put in a lot of meanings in the non-verbal cues that we are translating, and as a culture we are able to interpret it. So also, it's also about our famous nod. So we might do like this, we might do like this, and so many other things with our head. People belonging to our culture can clearly understand. However, when we go to a different culture, they will not be able to understand that part of the communication. So why we are able to understand it? Because in any high context culture, the meanings have already been created through this interpersonal relationships, and this knowledge is transferred from generation to generation. So even if a foreigner comes and lives in India for some time, they will slowly understand, they will slowly pick up what these non-verbal cues means. Now coming to the next pillar, which is time. How time is organized. Monochronic cultures treat time as linear, segmented and schedule driven, whereas polychronic, India is a polychronic culture. We handle multiple tasks fluidly and prioritize relationships over our schedule. So what it implies, that maybe you have an exam tomorrow morning, but let's say your very good friend walks in at night while you are preparing and says that I have some kind of grief to share with you, I feel down, will you talk with me for some time? You will give higher priority to your relationship most likely as compared to your schedule. Whereas in monochronic culture, they will have fixed slotted times for different things. So if there is something like 2 hours for study and then the next 1 hour is for entertainment, they will follow that as a schedule. Whereas in polychronic culture, we tend to mix all of these things. We might mix so we will also create a slot that 2 hours for study and 1 hour for entertainment, but when it is up practicing, most of us would end up mixing all of them up. Now coming to space. How distance is regulated. The field of proxemics. So Hall identified 4 interpersonal zones: intimate, personal, social and public, whose boundaries shift dramatically across cultures and shape interface density and notification proximity. Now these spaces, how we conceive our space, what is our intimate, personal, social or public space, that also within a culture varies depending on whether you are used to living in a very crowded place or whether you are used to living in a low density population also. Gender also makes a difference on how you perceive. So if there are people from the same gender, they might have a different definition of these 4 zones, and people from opposite genders might have a different definition for all these 4 zones when the opposite gender is approaching. So let's get into details. The context continuum. So Hall placed cultures along a continuum based on how meaning is encoded in messages. So as I told you, it is about high context or low context. So in high context cultures, much of the message lives outside the words. So I might say see you tomorrow, that does not really mean see you tomorrow. We might just say that as a set of words as bye. Whereas in a low context culture, if somebody says see you tomorrow, then that definitely means I will see you tomorrow. So in a high context culture, it's how you are expressing your non-verbal cues. They determine how you are supposed, what is the meaning over there. So say for example, in high context cultures, it is also seen that people do not say very easily no for something. So if in a high context culture, if I ask somebody, would you like to join in for my interview? And if they say that, let me think over it and then I will tell you. So in a high context culture, that means no. In a low context culture, that means they will really think about it and then get back to you because they need to look into their schedule and plan for this interview. So in low context cultures, meaning is loaded into the words only. So they are explicit, literal and self-contained. No culture is purely high context and purely low context. So even within one country, subgroups sit at different points. So let's say, for example, if you are working in a context where you are supposed to create legal contracts with somebody, then it is a low context. So even in a high context culture, a legal contract is low context. So what it implies, the words explicitly mean what they are supposed to mean. So for designers, the continuum predicts how much explicit instructions a user expects, how tolerant they are of ambiguity, and how heavily they rely on visual context, social proof, or relational cues to make decisions. So in high context cultures, there are several cultures which are like that. So Japan, China, Korea, India, the Arab cultures, much of Latin America and sub-Saharan Africa. Whereas low context cultures are mostly from Western Europe and Northern Europe. So Germany, Switzerland, Scandinavia, the Netherlands, also US, Canada and Australia. So let's look at some design implications of this. So if you see this particular screen, high context versus low context. So in a high context culture, I need to have evocative imagery. Large atmospheric images set the mood and implies the meaning. So you can see how the application, it is about a same brand which is about wanderlust. So it is a travel application. Here in case of high context cultures, whereas in case of a low context cultures. So I really don't need to actually set this evocative imagery. I may choose to select it also, but it is not very important. What is important over here is direct imagery. So you can see that there is a bag, there are some flights. Different designers will select different ways of interpreting it. This is my way for looking at how I want the design to be. Then how the ambient illustrations and motifs, so subculture cues and natural elements create this familiarity. So find your next escape. Journeys that nourish the soul and create lasting memories. Explore destinations. Whereas over here you can see it directly goes into search trips, or it says find your next trip, search destinations, compare prices and book with ease, and search trips. So the messaging is way much more direct as compared to what it was in the context of the high culture. Now I have to have layered information. So multiple elements coexist, meaning emerges from scanning the context. So here you can see I have explored the destination as well as stories from travelers. So it talks about slow days in Positano, hidden gems of another place. Whereas you see over here, it is about explicit information hierarchy. So there are headlines, there are buttons. I have another headline over here which is grouping something here. Then I guide the user through these settings. If they are looking at some secure booking, so like they want that trust and quickly access the support system, and they are also saying that there is best practice. So all of the information which somebody would be looking is made more explicit. Now, the visuals in the context of a high context culture are more rich and warm visuals. So are the colors, texture, depth communicate emotion and tone. Whereas in case of a low context culture, usually clean and minimal layouts are preferred, as you can see this in this particular screen. Now coming to how much copy you need to put. Copy in the sense the text that is going into it. High context culture, you have to have conclusive prompts. Short, minimal text leaves room for user interpretation. So say for example, pay with card. Use a different payment medium. By continuing, you agree to our terms and privacy policy. Whereas if I have the same design for a low context culture, I have written, okay, so the information over here has to be explicit. Tell users exactly what to do and how to do it. So pay with the card, enter your card details to complete the payment. Here I have put card, and then I have also written enter 16-digit number on the front of your card. Enter the month and year your card expires. So there is more clearer instructions. Here I have put the billing address also. Here I am assuming that the user will go to the next page or has already put the address in yet another page. So there is information is hidden over here, and it is implicit that they are already done or they will be done on the next page, and people are comfortable with that. If payment fails, your card has declined, please check the card details or try another card, and why the card might have failed, that information is also provided to you. Now if I look at the micro copy. So in case of a low context, every field, it should clearly help text for every input. So I have micro fields. Whereas over here I rely on the context, use familiar patterns and user experiences to reduce the explanation. So much less explanation is available. You have just put the CVV because you want the entry in MM and YY, so you have just put it like that. Then comes subtle feedback. So subtle feedback, less intrusive messaging assumes user can infer and recover. So when I have this billing address, so the billing address over here you can see was more explicit. Here in this case I have put it over here, and then somebody can click and select from the drop down menu. In case of a low context culture, there has to be a detailed message error, like why something has gone error. Whereas in case of a high context culture, it you should still have reasons for why it might have failed, but a very detailed description is not required. In a low context culture, step-by-step progress is supposed to happen. So show users where they are and what's coming next. In high context culture, a cleaner layout, more white spaces, fewer words, create a calm, trusting experience. Now going to the social proof in digital interfaces. Again, we have high context and low context. So here you can see that I need relational signals. Travel with someone you know, join my friends and real travelers. Where here I am looking for explicit proof upfront, ratings and reviews. So you can see the ratings and reviews. In case of a high context, I am looking for community ratings too, and they are placed over here in this particular fashion with the faces of people, trying to show that they are real people. whereas in the low context, third party verification is what is required. So you can look at, there is something called trip assure over here, which is giving them some kind of validity, also verified by these third parties, which is giving them the validity. Now coming to influencer presence. So in a high context culture, influencer presence, where leveraging stories from influencers is highly important, whereas in a low context culture they would prefer more of a verifiable metrics, so show them concrete numbers, counts and guarantees. In a low context culture, you should have a formal proof that it is which is prominent, and you should have social content as well, but that becomes secondary. So for example, the social content is here where I can read the reviews, but it has become secondary, and the formal proof, the verified parties and these things, they have taken higher precedence. However, if you look at the high context, social cues are front and center and formal proof is subtle. So all this is about social cues. Community rating. Again, community rating. It is the trust factor. The formal proof is very much less important, but however, you should also try to incorporate them as well. Now coming to negotiation and trust. So in a high context culture, it is about relationship first. So seller profile, history and responsiveness, which comes first. So here there is seller profile. I have how much they have sold, the kind of chat that is happening over here, and here are all the details which tell me how this person's relationship has been with other people. Whereas in the context of low context culture, what I feel most important is the fixed pricing. So that is what has been highlighted in a big way. When you go for e-commerce, even in high context cultures, you require fixed pricing. However, if you look at the screen design, you will see even on this particular screen, the relationship will be more focused on. So how this particular seller reviews are over other sellers, because I am trying to sell something which is a hand woven Persian rug. So it is a handloom product. So it is a specific category where people want to know whether that product is genuine, how good that particular product, because it is not a standardized product coming from a brand that is already known to you. So in a high context culture, if I have to sell this kind of a product, I have to focus on the relationship first. I have to build in a human contact, so easy access to chat or call before purchasing. I should be able to do some kind of negotiation or mutual agreement on when the product can be delivered. There has to be some community signals that people have recommended this product, and trust is built over time. So you buy it once and then you feel happy, and then you have buyer photos, and slowly the trust gets built up. Now in the context of a low context culture, what they are looking is a fixed price, price is final and clearly displayed, instant checkout, so add to the cart or buy now. Clear policies, shipping, return and guarantees are supposed to be explicit. So you can see the explicitness. Self-service support has to be provided. So help center and FAQs replace human interaction, and system trust. Platform guarantees and secures the payment and builds the trust. So even if the product is not good, the platform will ensure that it is taken back. Now coming to monochronic versus polychronic time. So in a monochronic culture, time is linear, segmented and measured. One task at a time. Schedules are sacred. Punctuality signals respect. Examples are again Germany, Switzerland, Scandinavia. Japan in context of work. Japan in context of communication is high context. So within a high context culture, you can also have a monochronic culture. And within the context of a low context country, you might also have a polychronic aspect to it. Depends on the context. So polychronic, time is fluid, simultaneous and relational, multiple threads run in parallel, deadlines yield to relationships, interruptions are welcome. Examples are India, much of Africa, Latin America, the Middle East, European countries which are around the Mediterranean. Scheduling in digital interfaces. So now we will discuss some examples. So you look at a monochronic interface that is supposed to be very different from a polychronic interface. You can clearly see that there are overlaps happening. Here you can see there is clear-cut boundaries between different aspects. So in a monochronic culture, you have rigid time slots, fixed time slots, whereas here I am having some flexible windows. I have some suggestions, what is coming up next, some quick actions. In a monochronic culture, it might be very important to have an RSVP also, so that the users commit, yes, I am accepting this. It is supposed to be prepared in advance, so reminders are sent. So you will have, should have the option of a reminder 1 day earlier, 15 minutes earlier, and so on. Whereas in polychronic time culture, approximate durations, so durations are estimates, not strict boundaries. They can be adapted and replanned, so easy to move and resize. Then digital interfaces, notifications. So in a monochronic culture, you can see digest at predictable times, focus friendly. So there is a notification, and this notification is at this particular time, and Alex mentioned in you in this, and Jamie replied to your comment. There is another grouping which is about project updates. So they are grouped, there is layered summary, and then there can be quiet hours can also be set over here. You can also have per market default. So if you are selling the product in monochromic as well as monochronic, you can also create different kinds of default and then let people change depending on what their own preferences are. So here you can see frequency and real time. So there are all these alerts are separated out, and you have alerts per person. That part is highlighted. It is layered and overlapped. Inflow ping supports ongoing conversations and quick responses. Flexible timing is available, so it says 18 minutes before rather than telling exactly it came at 7:10. Then there can be again pre-market defaults wherein you can set. So if I'm from a polychronic time culture, but I still like this interface, I can move myself to that one. Now coming to task management. So when you are into a monochronic culture, you have to have linear to-do list, single task focus, progress to finish, start and due times should be explicit, and for every task, no context switches. So here you can see that I have a particular day, then I have to do some review plan which is scheduled at this hour, and then I have the next one because this was one particular activity, so my progress bar also shows how much I have finished in that particular day. Now if I look at the same board for a polychronic culture, you can see there is a Kanban style board. Multiple columns show work in progress at once. Parallel tasks are happening. Many tasks can be worked on simultaneously. Context switching is possible, so easy to switch the context. So when I am into this whole thing, I can jump over here and I can do something. I can add a card to this particular task. There is more flexible timing over here because you cannot see that this is fixed timing, and here I don't have an aspect of timing involved. So there are also contextual labels. So I want to do a campaign brief, I want to do a logo concept design, and so on. Now, pacing and pressure in digital interfaces. So, in a monochronic culture, you should have countdown timers, scarcity indicators, clear call to action, and firm pressure. So, you can see that there it shows how much time is left to do this checkout process, and if there is hurry, only 3 left in stock. It's not that you won't use it in a polychronic culture. You can still use it in a polychronic culture, but here in this case, consultation first encourages discussion and group decision making, soft information, flexible hold options, and low pressure contexts are provided to you. So for example, travel is better when planned together. Take time to review with your family or travel companions. So if you want to do that, you can actually hold this price for some time, because polychronic culture people would love to do that. And good to know, prices are not guaranteed until booking. You can come back anytime to complete your booking. Free cancellation within 24 hours of booking. So you are offering that flexibility without creating that urgency that you have to do it right away, because polychronic people would love to have that flexibility and time. Now coming to the 4 distance zones. So the intimate zone is up to about 0.5 meters. So reserved for whispering, embrace, physical comfort. In design, this is the haptic and on-body layer. So wearables, biometric scanners, in-ear audio. Cultures differ sharply on who may enter this zone unbidden. Now comes the personal, which ranges from 0.5 to 1.2 meter. Conversations with friends and family, maps to the mobile screen held in hand. Push notifications and lock screen context live here. Respect the intimacy by avoiding aggressive promotional copy at this distance. Social, which is 1.2 to 3.6 meter. Acquaintances, colleagues, transactional encounters, maps to laptop, tablet, on table, kiosk, ATM. Latin American and Mediterranean users compress this zone. Northern European users expand it. So tune kiosk UI distance and font size accordingly. Public, more than 3.6 meters. Lectures, signage, large displays, broadcasts. So it maps to TV, projector, wayfinding, billboards, smart city screens, type sizes, and contrast and animation pacing must accommodate viewers at the back of the room also when you are considering that. So the dimensions in this UX research life cycle that we discussed, where they bite in when you are trying to do UX research are. So if you are talking about PDI, which is power distance index, who participates, who differs, whose voice the data captures. So if you are doing a focus group discussion, if you are doing a participatory design, co-design, a brainstorming session, it is extremely important to consider what is the PDI of that particular society. A high power distance society has hierarchies. So then in that case, you do not bring the boss and the subordinate into the same discussion table, because the boss is the one who will be speaking. In a low power distance context, you can bring all of them together. In a high power distance culture, you might have to put extra effort to make everybody speak. Whereas in a low PDI, you have to design the whole setting in a manner that you quietly move from one person to another person and turn taking is taken. The next comes the individual, how individualistic or how achievement oriented the society is. So if whether the society works more in as an individual entity or as a group entity. So when it is a more collective society, you can look at how to create this group aspect to it, how to create more focus group, participatory design, and how can you even do interviews or contextual inquiries in group. In the achievement oriented, you have to look at comfort with disagreement and self-promotion. When it is about uncertainty avoidance, you have to see how much structure, consent, detail, and protocol formality participants need. Coming to halls, high context, low context, you have to look at rapport investment, indirect language, reading what is not said. Hall as monochronic or polychronic time session length, punctuality, overruns, and scheduling. Realism is determined by them. So, when you are planning the study, if you are recruiting and sampling high PDI people, so recruit across hierarchy levels separately. A junior will not contradict a senior in the same room. In a collectivist, where there is also people work more in groups and there is low individualism, recruit family or peer units, not just individuals, because decisions are made in groups. Gender coded, plan same gender moderation where mixed sessions would silence women or men. Protocol and consent. High UAI, detailed agenda, signed consent, named institutional sponsors. Vagueness reads as untrustworthiness. In a high context culture, budget a warm up phase like tea, small talk, intermediary, intro before any task works. The polychronic time cultures. Schedule fewer sessions per day with wider buffers, expect 15 to 30 minute slippage. The method choices. In a collectivist plus high context society, contextual home visits and observation outperform isolated interviews. In a individualist and low context culture, remote 1:1 interviews and unmoderated surveys travel much better. When you are conducting the session, if you are in a high PDI culture, match moderator seniority or age to the participants. Over formal address like Mr., Sir, Ma'am is the safe default. In a high context culture, avoid direct why questions early. Use scenarios, artifacts, and storytelling prompts instead. In a collectivist culture, ask about we, my family, our team. Phrase complaints as group concerns, not personal feelings. When you are trying to read the room, an indirect no. So in high context culture, maybe it is difficult, we will see means no. Don't push for an explicit refusal. Silence, so in Japan, Finland, parts of India, silence is reflection. Wait 5 to 8 seconds before reprobing. Face saving. Never expose a usability feature as the user's fault. Frame it as a product defect. Logistics. In a monochronic time culture, enforce the clock. Participants expect it. In a polychronic time, let conversations breathe. Cutting off rapport more than the schedule. So let's look at one study across 3 markets. So I have a brief which says test a fintech onboarding flow with first-time users. Identical research goals, 3 different operational areas. So I have Germany, which is low context, low PDI and monochronic time. Japan, high context, mid PDI and M time. India, high context, high PDI and P time. So I will recruit in Germany 1:1 individuals, mixed gender is okay. In Japan 1:1 recruit via intermediary or panel. In India I will recruit by family or household unit and split sessions by seniority. Consent. Detailed written form GDPR clean upfront in Germany. In Japan formal but brief intermediary vouchers for purpose. In India verbal plus written explain sponsors institution by name. Rapport. In Germany, skip small talk, start on time. In Japan, you should have tea plus business card rituals plus 10 minutes of warm up. In India, tea or family chat, 15 plus minutes of warm up and expect interruptions. Probing in Germany, direct why, critique invited. In Japan, present scenarios plus artifacts, never force a no. In India, story prompt should be given, reframe failure as a product, not user. Constantly keep doing that. Session length. In Germany, it should be 60 minutes then it is a strict 60 minutes. In Japan, try to put 75 minutes with a little bit of a buffer. In India, put 90 minutes and some flexible window. In Japan, red flags, polite hedging is real concern. In Japan, if it is like somebody says it is difficult, it means no. In India, if somebody says yes sir with no follow through, then it means no. So the culture and the questionnaire design wording also makes a difference. So how question phrasing and rating scales shift by culture. So direct versus indirect. High context culture resists blunt facing. Soften with framing and context. In Japan, replace was the agent rude with how comfortable did you feel during the call. Acquiescence bias. In collectivist, respondents and high PDI cultures tend to agree, balance positive and reverse coded items. So pair. The app is easy to use with I often get stuck in the app to detect the yay saying. Face and politeness. High context. Collectivist culture where public negative judgment is uncomfortable. Avoid items that invite public negative judgment of a brand or a person. So ask what could make this better instead of what did the agent do wrong. Now, extreme versus midpoint. The US or LATAM skew extreme. So East Asia clusters are always at midpoint. They report distributions, not just means. So what this implies, a 4.2 mean in Brazil and a 4.2 mean of a Likert scale in Japan can hide very different curves. So try to look at the histograms rather than just the mean values. The scale length, use a 5 point for low literacy or oral context, and you can use up to a 7 point, even a 10 point only where respondents read fluently. I will discuss more about this Likert scale design in later on lectures. So in rural India, use a 3 point smiley scale which have shown to be outperforming a 7 point Likert scale or any other Likert scale. Anchors and visuals. Verbal anchors travel better than numeric pair with culturally neutral icons. So replace a 1 to 7 with not at all to completely plus a left to right gradient bar depending on the culture. Translating the words is the easy part. So translating the construct is difficult. So always do a back translation. So let's say I said, how satisfied are you? And then I translated in Hindi, and then I again translated back into English, and now it says, how much peace did you receive? Then of course your translation is wrong. Conceptual equivalence. Family in a US survey means the nuclear unit. In India, it can include in-laws, cousins, elders, so split them to understand them better. Pilot in the country where you are interested. So if you want to do the study in 10 different countries, pilot it in all the 10 countries before getting into full-fledged research. So the common pitfalls to avoid are translation is not equal to localization, weird sample bias. Urban English-speaking people are not the real representatives of every country. Dimension as a stereotype. National scores describe distributions, not individuals. So the Hofstede's dimensions need to be used carefully. Moderator as an instrument. The researcher's own culture filters every interpretation, pair with a local co-researcher. So, culture is a communication and communication is culture. The hidden dimensions of human behavior are far more important than the visible ones. So, the key takeaway is context is the message. Time and space shape UX, adapt the whole life cycle and design with rigor. So that brings us to the end of this particular lecture, and I will see you next in inclusive design principles. See you, bye.